Hello, and welcome to my video. In today's episode, we will be discussing the ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Russia, and the recent developments that have come to light. So let's ask a man who probably knows a lot more about the matter. Former advisor to the SEC, deaf under Trump, our pal retired Colonel Doug Macgregor. Colonel, how about it? Do you think the recent drone attack on the Kremlin was Russian propaganda, or do you think Zelensky is getting really desperate? Well, I think this is an act of desperation by the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians have infiltrated teams into Russia before and launched unmanned aircraft or drones at various targets. The border is endless, it's 1,100 miles forested, and it's very easy to penetrate. And they got close enough to launch these things at the Kremlin. Now, did it make any difference? Absolutely not. Is it going to change anything? No. And that's why I say this is an act of desperation. Ukrainians no longer have any air defenses, and we've got to stop and consider that when ground forces have no air defense, it's a turkey shoot on the ground. And that's exactly what's happening right now. As we're talking, many strikes are going in all over Ukraine. A lot of them are being launched from aircraft. So Ukraine's in deep trouble, and there's no easy way out. You said something like this has happened before. Have we heard of Ukrainian soldiers or spies actually in-country carrying this out, and then they've been killed or apprehended so that there's some proof or evidence? Not just Russia saying that. Yes, in fact, they've captured some teams that never were able to launch anything. But you'll recall just a few months ago, there were attacks on a couple of air bases, one of which was the Engels Air Force Base in southern Russia. And they did manage to strike an aircraft on one occasion and do some damage. So this is not the first time. What's interesting about this, of course, is that they penetrated deeply enough to reach the Kremlin and at least strike the building in which allegedly President Putin resides. But it's irrelevant. It's an act of desperation. There's not much the Ukrainians can do. Once the ground dries out, there are hundreds of thousands of Russian troops with hundreds of thousands of guns and tanks that are going to move forward and sweep everything before them. And I think Zelensky knows that. Where does that leave us? $118 billion price tag and counting. You have members of both sides of the aisle in the Senate and a couple in the House. Obviously, this White House, all saying we support Ukraine. We're defending Ukraine. We're going to keep sending money. But it sounds like from you, and from others I've had on this program, it's a bottomless, empty pit because this war is going to go nowhere, even if we continue to throw billions of dollars at it. Well, I think we need to pay attention to our own economic health. And that's where we've fallen down badly. We should be interested in competing economically with what the Chinese are doing. The Chinese walk into Africa or other countries. They come in with cash. They want to do business. They make it very clear they're not going to interfere in the internal affairs of these countries. They're just there to do business. And so the Chinese are welcome. We show up, and we threaten everyone unless they adhere to whatever we say the standard is for political development. We're trying to tinker with everybody's business. Now we discuss the impact on the broader geopolitical landscape. The conflict has far-reaching implications that go beyond the borders of Ukraine and affect the relations between major world powers, including the United States, Russia, and China. First, let's look at the impact on U.S.-Russia relations. The conflict has strained relations between the two countries, with the U.S. imposing economic sanctions on Russia and Russia responding with counter-sanctions. The situation has also led to increased military activity in the region, with both sides conducting military exercises and positioning troops along the border. The U.S. has been vocal in its support for Ukraine, while Russia maintains that it has a right to protect its interests in the region. The conflict has also affected the balance of power in the world, with China playing an increasingly significant role. China has taken a neutral stance on the conflict, but has been working to strengthen its relations with both Russia and Ukraine. As the U.S. and Russia continue to be at odds, China has an opportunity to step in and fill the power vacuum left by these two major world powers. The situation has also highlighted the importance of energy security in the region. Europe relies heavily on Russian gas, and the conflict has raised concerns about the reliability of this supply. Countries like Ukraine, which are transit points for Russian gas, are particularly vulnerable in this regard. The U.S. has been working to increase its energy exports to Europe, but it remains to be seen whether this will be enough to offset the impact of the conflict on energy security. The conflict between Ukraine and Russia has far-reaching implications for the broader geopolitical landscape. It has strained relations between the U.S. and Russia, created opportunities for China to increase its influence, and raised concerns about energy security in the region. As the conflict continues to unfold, it will be important to keep a close eye on these developments and their impact on the world stage.